Coup de Chance. Coup de Chance? Coup de Chance? Coup de Chance, I believe is the pronunciation. Stroke of luck is what that means in English. To everyone listening from France, I do just apologize right now. I never took a French class. I am so unfamiliar with the language and the nuances of it. I quite literally just listened to a Google Translate of it. Let me play that.
Coup de chance. Coup de chance.
Coup de Chance, and just tried replicating that as best as I could for this French film directed by Woody Allen. So, again, and you're going to hear me say this throughout the review, I apologize for mispronunciations because they are coming and I am trying my best. So, I'm getting in front of it because I know for Society of the Snow, I got criticized for it. So, right now, apologizing. I hope we have nothing else to say about that. So Coup de Chance is the 50th film from Woody Allen. And this was premiered at, I believe it was the Venice Film Festival last year. Yeah, it premiered at Venice last year. This is released by the Metropolitan Film Export. They are a French distribution company because obviously Woody Allen has been having trouble getting his films financed and produced in America post the controversies. I will fully admit I am familiar with the Woody Allen controversies. I have read a little bit of them. I Woody Allen is kind of a figure past my time in the sense that when a lot of these stories were coming out in the 90s and early 2000s, I wasn't really aware of them, nor was I aware of Woody Allen as an artist. My relationship with Woody Allen as a filmmaker is almost exclusively from college and doing film history and, seeing Annie Hall and really connecting and finding his comedic sensibilities from the 1960s and 1970s. In particular, just something so unique that I had never seen as someone of Jewish heritage, as someone who, grew up with Jewish family, there is this sensibility that Woody Allen strikes that is remarkable. It is a type of humor that I had never seen before. And it was really my introduction into this style of filmmaking. So Woody Allen does have a huge impact on myself as a film critic and as someone who loves film. So I have always been someone who's been fascinated by his career as a filmmaker. And I know that's a really controversial and hard thing to talk about because people who talk about this idea that you can detach the art from the artist are speaking utter horseshit. That is actually an impossible thing to do. Art and the artist are so intertwined. So when people are like, well, I watch the Woody Allen films detached from everything about him personally, I understand the sentiment that is trying to be conveyed, but essentially what you're doing is you're lying to yourself. You cannot actually do that. What you can do is you can compartmentalize it and understand that this artist is an extremely complicated, maybe even awful human being, and yet his art still has impact of greatness or of at one time perceived greatness. And that again does not excuse the artist for their behaviors or their alleged crimes. That is just saying that all art is complicated and the history of art and artists is profiled with people who had complicated relationships with their public image and with the law. So that is what you have to understand. And that's how I approach a Woody Allen movie now, because that is a really difficult uh, fact to just kind of understand. And it's one that requires still like a lot of uh, comprehension, and also one that is completely biased on my decision. Why is it that I cannot listen to Michael Jackson music? Like I've basically boycotted all Michael Jackson music because of what I have heard about him and of the alleged crimes that he committed, and that I don't watch Roman Polanski movies. But yet, for whatever weird reason, I make the exception for Woody Allen movies. That doesn't actually make any sense. It doesn't. And I fully understand that I have this bias and I'm making exceptions. And that is also showing that it's all complicated and that we as humans are imperfect and we pick and choose. So I am saying this more of a place of honesty, which is just that I, for some reason, have allowed myself to watch the 50th film of Woody Allen because of what he means to me as an artist, for good and for bad. And for other artists, I do not make that exception. Going back into my review of Coup de Chance, which is the 50th film from Woody Allen, I uh, I was fascinated by this film as an idea and as it meant for Woody Allen, who, if I'm correct, I believe he is in his late 80s. Woody Allen is 88 at this moment. And to some degree, this feels like a film made by an 88-year-old uh, person. And it also feels like it feels like a film made by someone who's been watching Woody Allen films for the past 4 to 5 decades. It's this weird kind of experiment of which Coup de Chance exists in, which is this film feels like Woody Allen, and yet it almost feels completely emotionally detached of being Woody Allen. And it's this sensation that I don't fully understand. And I'm going to try to explain it in this review. But for those who do not know, Coup de Chance follows this woman named Fanny. She's married to this fella named Gene. And Fanny, she's had this previous relationship. She was married. That marriage didn't go over well. She's married to Gene, who Gene is this wealthy, wealthy businessman who treats her so fondly. He loves her so much. He gives her everything. He spoils her. And yet, this isn't really the life that Fanny has ever dreamed of living. She isn't really into all the excess of it, although she does find herself in love with Jean. When she meets this character from her past named Alan, and Alan is Alan. I think it's probably just pronounced Alan, but the French accent in this movie made it sound like Alan. Uh, but Alan is this guy from high school, and they both had this mutual attraction, and of course they start this affair. And as any film that you've seen, you all kind of know where this is going. The Coup de Chance becomes a drama thriller of extramarital affairs. And then we start learning who this guy of Jean is and really what stakes he's willing to do in order to get his way. And as a film, I liked it. I liked the emotional stakes of this movie. As a Woody Allen film, I found this movie quite perplexing. And let me just talk about why I'm making that difference. As a film, I thought all the performances worked in its favor. The main character of Fanny, played by Lou de Laâge, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. Again, sorry. I thought she was really charismatically charming in this movie. She just had this natural beauty to herself and this natural, just joyous energy that you kind of couldn't help but get swept up in. I thought the character played by Niall Schneider, he plays Alan in this film. He is kind of the stand-in for the Woody Allen protagonist, and he's also another guy where I just watched him. And I'm like, oh, he's also really good, and he's able to convey that neurotic writer, that again, that Woody Allen protagonist, and he does it well. And then you have someone who I thought was the standout, and I'm so sorry that I cannot pronounce her name. The mother of Fanny, Camille, played by Valérie Lemercier, I believe is Valérie Lemercier. Here, I'm going to play the Google search that I found of her so you guys can hear how to pronounce it as I've been told.
Valérie Lemercier.
Valérie Lemercier. Again, apologies because I know I'm mispronouncing all these names. She's great. This is actually one of those things while watching this film, I'm like, oh, if this was an American film and Woody Allen was still the director that he was maybe even 10 to 15 years ago, who whatever actress got this role was a guaranteed best supporting actress contender for that year's Academy Award. Like that is the level of quality of role that I thought that he wrote for this actress. And like I said, all of that really works in this film. So I am intrigued by this film. I like this story. I like the emotional beats that it's hitting. It has this emotional honesty that I think is what has always drawn me to Woody Allen's specifically earlier works. Why I find Annie Hall literally one of the masterpieces of the romantic genre. And so that's all working for me. And the story is light, it's breezy. I got wrapped up in this small little world that Alan creates for these characters. Now, when I'm talking about this idea where this almost feels like a film that someone who studied Woody Allen's films but isn't themselves Woody Allen, that's where I was finding myself so perplexed by this film, because Woody Allen is someone who's made films like Crimes and Misdemeanors. He's already approached this type of subject matter before. And it kind of feels like a rinse and repeat, where it's just like Woody Allen can make this type of film in his sleep at this point. And it's not really interesting anymore as an artist to just kind of keep going back to this well. And I understand, if you have strengths, play to your strengths. And yet, also while watching this movie, I just felt like, what is he trying to accomplish with this story? Besides just kind of have this quaint, breezy, fun little crime drama, romantic thriller here, and just make this type of film again. And that's where I was kind of at a loss while watching this film. Was I was just like, I don't understand what he is now trying to say. It feels like he is so past his prime as an artist of just making anything innovative or of note. And yet, while still watching this film, I liked the film. And this is the case of like, it's so anonymous from Woody Allen. And I don't know how to really describe that. And that's why I'm struggling with this review, because I don't know how to place thoughts into words of that. Where I was watching this film, and there's moments where I'm just like, oh, that is a scene that feels so harping on other Woody Allen movies. But then you realize, you're like, well, it's reminding me of Woody Allen movies because it's made by Woody Allen. And it's like a movie that's almost paying homage to Crimes and Misdemeanors and all these other Woody Allen movies. But it's Woody Allen paying homage to himself. And maybe that is just the fact that he is an artist who's so staying in his lane that he just kind of can't help himself. But it does make this weird experience of watching it where I'm just like, okay, I get it. And I get what you're trying to do. And I feel like you're accomplishing it pretty well in this film. But also, haven't you told this story before? Like, why dive back into this? And that was my complications while watching this movie. And it's maybe it's an unfair, maybe it's a completely fair criticism to have of him as an artist, but it is such a weird experience watching a Woody Allen movie, which I always think for their eccentricities, for the specific style and beats that he is able to hit as a filmmaker, and then watching a story that unfolds like a Woody Allen movie and has some of that romantic New York aesthetic to this film. And yet, while watching this, you could tell me 1,000 different artists, and yet I would have never been able to determine that this is Woody Allen making this movie. It is a Woody Allen movie in its structure, and yet the identity of a Woody Allen movie is somehow completely removed from it. And thus, I am left with this movie that I found charming and yet completely underwhelming in Woody Allen's filmography. I don't know how else to describe it, and I hope when people watch this film or choose not to, because I also completely understand a lot of people will choose not to watch this movie. And based on everything we've kind of either learned about him or has been speculated about him or has been alleged about him, he's destroyed his career. And that's a really, uh, that's going to make some people really uncomfortable with even exploring this film or giving it a chance. And I totally understand it. And I can't really recommend this film in the sense of like, this is such a important film to watch within this legacy of one of our most important 20th century artists, specifically one of our most important Jewish American 20th century artists, that like you have to watch it just to kind of understand this artist's arc, because you really don't need to watch this movie. But I'm also can say that like if you just go into this movie completely detached from all the knowledge, if this was their first exposure to Woody Allen, I'm sure someone would like this movie. I think it has enough of those beats in it, but it's not what I would describe a Woody Allen movie. And maybe that's was my hope for this movie, or I was trying to do something more with it. But it is what it is. And that is kind of the world in which we exist with Woody Allen as an artist. It is what it is now. And we just either choose to watch it or we choose not to. I chose to watch Coup de Chance. I enjoyed it. And I would also say this is completely unimportant viewing for someone who considers themselves a Woody Allen aficionado. This is not a significant piece of art from this filmmaker, and it is just going to kind of go forgotten, which I feel bad for the actors starring in this movie who do, I think, legitimately good work in this movie. But they also chose to work with this artist who has this baggage behind him and has such this complicated relationship within our history right now. So it's again the trade off, and you get to give these incredible performances for a movie not a lot of American audiences will watch. And I think this film has actually been doing quite well in France. And maybe this is how his career is going to play out for. I mean, he's 88. How many films does he really have left? But this is really the arc of his career.